Hi, welcome back for another preview video. This time I'm super duper excited because I have the pleasure of showing to you a game that really blends Greek mythology with modern dungeon crawling and clever new fresh ideas with action-driven narrative elements, all in a nice package which is coming to crowdfunding soon on GameFound. This is a game that it's going to blow your minds away. It really took me by surprise. I didn't know the company, I didn't know the game, I haven't seen anything about its development. It was a surprise for me, but boy did I enjoy when I played, and did I had a fantastic time discovering everything that it has to offer. And I'm so much looking forward for the game to be published, everyone to get to know it, because it's really one of a kind. Now, that being said, I'm going to cover a couple of aspects here as an introduction to this video. I'm going to add a link in the description of the video so you can follow up and find out more about the crowdfunding campaign page and get to be notified when the game is launching. It's going to be next week, very, very soon, as we speak now. The game is going to be a blast, I'm telling you, an instant success, both from its visual stunning appearance, but also its clever ideas, new concepts that it brings into the dungeon crawling theme, fantastic level of narration, which is just enough to put you into the mood, campaign book with maps that you progress by flipping the book and getting into the scenario, and a very, very unique story and amazing, amazing tactics. You don't have to take my word for it, you have to discover for yourself. I'm going to help you here with explaining the rules. I'm going to be very, very thorough. I'm going to add the link, timestamps in the description of the video so you can jump directly in sections of the rules that you want to check out separately or first. But I'm going to be very lengthy, very detailed. But keep in mind that the game is intended so it's played from the prologue scenario, which has let's say an introduction to the game, and you can find out a basic course and basic ideas. Then you move to the scenario 1, which gives you more rules, more fledged experience on the gameplay, and it's very close to the full experience. But then you move to scenario 2, which is all the rules included moving forward, which has everything that the game has to offer, and it's fantastic, amazing, really. So it's meant in a way so that it teaches you also slowly the rules in a progression, moving from the prelude scenario, scenario 0, how you want to call it, to scenario 1 and scenario 2, and this is in the demo copy. So I'm really much looking forward to see what happens with scenario 3 moving forward, the new characters that they're going to unlock. The game came to me as a prototype that I could have easily bought it off the shelf. It's that great, and this shows the commitment of the company, in my opinion. They have worked a lot on the details, on the production, on the art, on the quality of the prototype. So of course it's always going to be fine-tuning. I expect nothing less for companies that they have so much love for their babies, okay, their games, for us gamers to enjoy it. So stay tuned, follow the campaign to find out more. It is a game that I'm telling you, it's going to surprise a lot of people. It brings a lot of cool ideas and elements, fantastic fresh approach to dungeon crawling, very rich thematic experience without going into lengthy texts and reading. And I like reading and like narration, don't get me wrong, but sometimes you want to focus on the tactics, on the dungeon crawling and the mechanics, and just have enough story to guide you through your decisions, through your options and your gameplay, and enough text which is enough to supplement your gaming experience and immerse you into the theme. Huge praise to the tactics, to the character development, to the leveling up, to the decisions, to the options, to the combat system, to the variety, to the looks, to the ease of access, to the accessibility of the game. I like the fact that you don't have to set up different maps, etc. You just flip the board, just put some markers, and then you start playing the scenario. And you're getting better and better to it. And there are difficulty levels, there is true solo mode, you can play in team-based, all sorts of cool ideas. So, you can see I'm very pumped and very excited, but I'm really supporting this game because I love the theme, I love the Greek mythology, I love the genre, I love the approach, but above all, I absolutely loved their fresh approach to dungeon crawling theme. It's a theme that it's been so crowded. I love dungeon crawlers, and this is a very unique approach. It offers a lot of cool ideas, and it moves not only from the dungeon crawling genre a bit more into the the action-driven narration aspect, which is implemented very well in the design, in my opinion, at least. So, join me at the table. I'll show you all the details about the game, how it works, and I'm going to come back at the end of the video for some final wrap-up and more excitement, as you can see, about my very, very positive opinion about this prototype and why do I believe that everyone who likes dungeon crawling games, who likes Greek mythology games, who like new games and narration and narrative and campaign games should definitely check it out. So let's see how the game plays. Reign of Hades immerses players in a visually stunning and modern interpretation of Greek mythology, with its captivating blend of dungeon crawler elements and action-driven storytelling. In this enthralling cooperative campaign game, you will take the roles of fallen heroes who were once mighty Olympian gods. Imprisoned in Tartarus by the cunning Hades, you and your fellow players must set yourselves free and navigate the treacherous realms of the underworld altogether. Starting as mortal shadows of your former selves, you will fight to reclaim your divinity and strength, with one ultimate goal in mind, always to confront Hades and take back what's rightfully yours, Olympus. Now, what we see in front of us is, as I said before, a prototype. Everything looks gorgeous, but still it's a prototype, so take that in mind. So let's dive right ahead before going into the details of the rules and explain the goal of the game. You take on the role of a group of Olympian gods, and after a successful coup by Hades, you must cooperatively fight your way through the realms of the underworld, regain your divinity and strength, and reclaim what's rightfully yours. You start by choosing an Olympian god. So before your first game, you must choose an Olympian god character. That is the character that you will be playing through the course of the game. To help decide with that, you can refer to the Olympian god sections and read about their background story, or you can discuss with your fellow friends and choose together, or even randomly. The choice is not necessarily permanent. Throughout the campaign, at certain intervals, you will be given the option of changing characters between players, or even bringing new characters into play. Now, keep in mind that I'm going to explain how the game works and give you a good understanding of the mechanics and the gameplay of the game, but keep in mind that the rules are meant to be taught in a sequence to the players. There is the prelude, the prologue scenario, and this is just for players to get a baptism of fire and get into the game and start understanding the basics. Then you move into scenario 1, prison break, which is the one that I have set up to use it as a guide to teach you the game. And there are rules that are going to be referred as red rules. So before playing scenario 1, anything that is a red rule, it's in a red box in the respective rulebook when you read the rulebook. Or I should better say, in the rulebook will be highlighted with a red icon altogether. And you will need to read those rules in order to get from the prologue scenario to scenario 1, because added rules are included. Also, before playing scenario 2, which is Gate of Limbo, it's the scenario number 2, and any later scenarios also, you have to make sure you read also the blue icon displayed rules in addition. Last but not least, there are some rules that they are referred to with an orange icon, and these are only applicable for 3 or 4 players, where you'll see that there is a variant for 3 or 4 players, and also if you're playing with 1 or 2 players or solo, you don't need to use those rules. So, the key takeaway message is that Reign of Hades is a game that you will start getting into from the prologue scenario easily, and then get more information through the scenario number 1 and more rules, and then gradually from scenario number 2, when we move forward, you'll be able to play the full extent of the game and enjoy the story revealed. So, let's move and dive into the components. There are a lot of contents and components in Reign of Hades, and you're going to use them from scenario to scenario, and they're going to come with additional packs that they bring more cards based on the scenario and more tokens and content. Now, let's familiarize ourselves with the basic components so that we can start understanding how they work later on. Just a brief mention of some of the highlights of the components. You see in front of you everything ready to set up scenario number 1. Okay, so this is not a spoiler, so even if you want to avoid spoilers, I'm not showing any cards in this explanation. You just see, the map. It doesn't say anything other than that. The story and everything unravels throughout the selection of the players and throughout the scene cards that they revealed, etc. But let's focus on the components. What I'm trying to say is there is, for the demo copy for the reviewers, there is a scenario number 2 on the next 2 pages, and there is a prologue scenario on the previous 2 pages. Always use the campaign book and you open it, and there are 2 pages that make up the map and the special rules that you need to play. So this is very easy and very useful because you just open the book, sort out the encounter and some tokens, loot tokens, and some additional landmark tokens, and then you're theoretically ready to play. I like this approach more and more nowadays because you don't have to set up complicated, enlarged maps which take time to set up, to take away and put it and store it in the box. So this is very, very handy, and it lets you focus on the story, the game mechanics, and enjoy everything. Now, that being said, this is the demo campaign book. It only contains 3 scenarios: the prelude scenario, the scenario 0, scenario 1 prison break, and scenario 2, which is on the next 2 pages. The game comes with 4 characters. I'm sure that there are more going to be unlocked throughout the campaign. I'm going to add a link in the campaign on the description of the video below. The game comes with 4 miniatures and 4 hero packs. You can see already the miniatures placed here. They're fantastic. I've done a very detailed unboxing video of the prototypes. I'm not going to focus on showing off the components. You can go to this separate video and have a look on the detail and the amazing prototype that I have in front of me. So that's a very good reflection of what type of game you're getting in terms of production. Also, a lot of things are going to be changed. There's going to be a lot of improvement and fine-tuning, but already it's amazing and fascinating. What I'm trying to say and summarize is I have set up the player board for 1 player here, Athena, and there are 4 packs with the 4 heroes. We have Artemis, Zeus, and Hephaestus over there. These are their cards, but it's not only a single card. They have their tiles, they have their miniature, they have specific player aids, reminders, and all sorts of different things that they make up the character starting pack for their hero. You're going to get 4 of those, the 4 character miniatures. You're going to get encounter markers. So encounter markers are these really nice and detailed generic minis. They represent encounter markers that are going to face monsters. The type of monsters are going to come through the course of the monster deck, and this is specific to the scenario. So, example, for the scenario number 1, it has its own monster deck. For future scenarios, they also come with their specific cards. You're going to see that, for example, scenario pack prologue has the Wedding Crashers, has this pack with all these cards, and scenario 2, which is the one after this one, the Gate of Limbo, comes with its own card, tokens, and is also respectively monsters. So that's good because it gives a lot of variety and makes adjustments for the specific scenario, which I really, really like. There are also 4 combat dice reference cards, one for each player. This shows the faces of the combat dice. We have yellow, blue, and red combat dice. You see them over there. These are very nice custom dice. And here you can see the ranks all the way from 1 to 6 and the different faces. And this is very useful because it gives you a very good overview of what to expect when rolling dice. Of course, you roll dice in combat, but there are various ways to boost your dice results, and this is something that I also like in the game. Next, what we have is the shield board, which has the color of the player in the middle, as you can see. This one is yellow. This tracks the different, let's say, resources of the player. We have divinity, we have carry capacity, spark, might, and nectar over there. And you have dials that you use to track the stat. This goes in alignment with the stats of your card, hero that you're starting with, your god. But keep in mind that these are going to be changed throughout the course of the game. I know already that this is going to be improved with a larger hole to make it more visible. But I mean, it's already great, but I'm really happy that they're looking into details about improving their final component and the final production. So 4 sealed players, 1 for each, sealed boards, 1 for each player, tracking respectively the resources. And also in the center we have the tiles that we replace when we upgrade, and once you fill this inner circle by doing upgrades of the actions and moving the tiles there and filling the space, then you level up. What level up means is, for example, just to show you again how well thought this game is. For Athena, this is the way that the prologue scenario is going to be played, and when you start the first scenario, you're going to start with this stats and version. When you level up, you're going to move to the next level, where you're going to see that you have increased stats and better abilities, etc. So this is really nice because it shows a way of leveling up and upgrading your character. That being said, I need to also now mention the player board. This is dual layered board, which is very nice for tracking slots for lured monsters, tracking slots for action cards that you play, your Oblivion, essentially your discard pile here, that you can take up back cards and use them. These are slots for the abilities, whether they're Battlefield actions. You can do them by this selection and you can upgrade them, or whether there are cover actions. You'll find out in a sec what this means. Here goes your portrait of your hero. Here you track your ichor, which is essentially your health. Here's the tracker on the right, and this is the normal side which you use to play the game. Every player is going to take one of those. For the prologue, they went extra mile and printed on the back a very simplified version so that it will help everyone get easier into the game. Again, I'm not showing the prologue scenario nor the prologue side of the components, but because I want to explain all the rules and it will be easier in terms of making the video. But I want to emphasize on, you know, having the prologue version with let's say a basic understanding of some of the things, you know, the battlefield actions, the cover actions, and limited things, no slots, no tracks, etc. Makes it easier to get into the game, and then once you start playing scenario 1 moving forward, you'll play from the normal side. This goes for every player. Every player is going to get one player board plus one shield matching their color respectively. Now, moving. We have combat dice. Combat dice go into 3 colors. We have yellow, 3 yellow combat dice, 3 blue combat dice, and 3 red combat dice. And these you can find them there. Speaking of dice, since we are here, let's just see also the 2 additional dice that we have. We have the zone die, which is the zone die, which is this one. They are depicting different zones. And here we have the fate die. Okay, the zone die comes into play from scenario 2 moving forward, but this is the fate die that is used also in the course of the game already. Now we have various tokens. Just to mention a few, we have stamina tokens. These track the stamina of the monsters, and you replace the printed stamina that you have on the top right of the corner, on the corner of the monster card, with a reduced version as they take damage, so until they are out. We have shield tokens, which are used in combat. More on that when we explain how combat works. We have strike modifier tokens, which are used in order to track modifiers for strike and combat again. Ichor tokens, you can never have more ichor than your, let's say, stacked capacity, but here you see, for example, Athena starts with 2, that's why I've placed 2 ichor on the slot. If I take damage, I place it here, take it out of the slot and move it on my player hero character card, and if I regain ichor, meaning health, I place it back there. We also have loot tokens. You see already some loot tokens here and weapon loot tokens here, and there are additional loot tokens for cards introduced, type of cards like this one introduced in scenario 2 moving forward. These are placed on the map, and this is according to the scenario booklet. You don't see now the scenario booklet, but it's going to be a separate book indicating how to set up each scenario respectively. What you've seen here, it's not random. I've done it based on the scenario book, which is digital at this point. And then you see in the scenario book where your heroes start, how to place landmarks, for example, that you place, for example, amphoras here, which is a landmark. You place it in this location. If you block some of the areas where you can interact, if you place choices between paths, for example, here or here, because when you go here you read this section, or when you go here you read this section, etc. And then all these tokens are set according to its scenario, which gives the flexibility to make it very, very interesting and very, very, very different from scenario to scenario. Then we have utility cubes, these white cubes over here. These have various roles. For example, they track it from the round structure here on the round structure card, all the way to different statistics or different things. Or for example, when you use something here, in order to indicate that you've used it, you've interacted with this, you will place a utility cube over there. Similarly, there are additional tokens like X and exclamation tokens. You see an X token here means this is not accessible for the moment. It will become, it will open up later in the game. Or if a scenario dictates, maybe you also place exclamation tokens like this, which have special meaning and they're going to be explained depending on the scenario. There are also blessing and curse tokens. These blessing and curse tokens, you can find them not here. They're actually in the scenario pack number 2, because they're introduced from scenario 2 moving forward, the same like oracle cards. It has, I don't know if you can see it, this is the red, the blessing, and the opposite, the blue, the curse. The curse is the red and the blue is the blessing, I think, if I remember correctly, side of the token. Together with additional oracle cards, and they go into gameplay from scenario 2 moving forward. Now, we also have 4 position cards. Position cards are important because they will make sense once we explain how the game works. But you see, for example, if you play from 1 to 2 players, both your heroes are active in both waves. The structure of the round is wave 1, something's happened, wave 2, something's happened, and then the upkeep. Okay, that's a round structure. But if you're playing 1 or 2 players, both your heroes are active in wave 1 and wave 2. If you're playing with 3 or 4 players, you need to use the Battlefield and cover cards from B. Also, here it says A, as you can see. And I'm going to explain how this works later, but what happens is you exchange cards with one team handling 2 heroes and the other team handling another 2 heroes, and then who was in Battlefield, they will go in cover and so on. It will also make more sense. For example, here Athena is going to be in Battlefield A, for example, okay, or in cover A, and she's going to take the respective card. Now, being in cover or in Battlefield means in a zone. I'm going to say it right ahead now, but I'm going to make the breakdown of the zone later on. If you are here, it's in cover, in the dark shadow. If you are here, you're in Battlefield. So each zone has a darker side, typically behind a dotted blue line, which is in cover, and you can only do cover actions there, and a Battlefield area where you can fight and encounter monsters and be more, let's say, active in terms of offensive, I should say, and then you'll be able to do Battlefield actions over there. More on that later, but for the moment keep in mind that there are cards like that which dictate if you are in Battlefield or cover mode, based on where you are on the map, and if you are in Team A or Team B using the Greek lower letters A and B from the Greek alphabet. I emphasize this because I'm Greek by nationality, so you can imagine, and I love Greek mythology also, so you can imagine I have more than one reasons to be excited about how fascinating this game is and how intrigued I am. Moving forward, we have weapon cards. For example, these are weapon cards. They show the weapon on the back. Let me focus on the back of the card. This is a weapon, okay, and there are different weapons. These are the let's say starting weapons that at least they're trying to get in this scenario 1. It's nice because we're still a prisoner and trying to get our weapons back, and then move to scenario 2 moving forward. Yeah, so but in any case, the weapons have this icon on the back. The prologue scenario has its own weapons, like broken bottles and chairs, etc. More basic, okay? We're just trying to, we crashed the wedding and then we ended up in the prison, nonetheless. So moving from there, we're trying to get our weapons and then get back to what's rightfully ours. So the story is really nice, okay? That's the first thing that you need to keep in mind, that you have weapons, that these are weapons also, that you're going to be using. In addition, there are additional cards like cards, action cards, which are 3 types. We have the challenge cards, and these have this icon, okay? And there are challenges that you need to use and do. You have the action cards, the main action cards, okay? And this dictates when you play it. If you play it like that, you're going to making a battlefield action, or if you're playing it like that, you're going to making a cover action. Cover action, the blue icon, battlefield action, the yellow icon. And you can see this division is also here, yellow on the left, battlefield action options, cover action options on the right, and they are blue. And the last thing that we have is some feat cards, and these are also part of the starting hand of the player. They come into their, let's say, character pack. Okay, so Athena has all this that I showed you, comes from Athena, and each player has their own. And you can gain more through the course of the game based on the scenario, brings more cards, and these offer boosts, let's say, and additional options and additional things that you can use, and you're going to understand how they work later on in a sec. We also have a very useful play rate, which depicts what happens in the battlefield when a hero is in battlefield active, or when a hero is active in undercover, okay, in the blue area or in the battlefield area of the map. Each player has also one of these, which is also nice. And then I failed to mention we have the Sentinel monsters board, which is this one. It tracks the monster slots, and there are defeated monsters here, defeated monster pile at the bottom, and these are for this scenario, these are locked, but these are alert Sentinel monsters. In moving forward in the next scenario 2 onwards, these are going to be also active, okay, and you're also going to have alert monsters, but for the moment just focus on the fact that these monsters comes from the scenario deck, and it shows the different monsters that you're going to be facing, from giant hands to Sporon to Dracina, okay. By the way, Dracina is the female word for Dracos, which is a Greek word for dragon, from the Greek mythology. Right, so monster cards, okay, and there are also some scene cards here. These are special scene cards that they are scenario specific. They came in the scenario 1, okay, so I'm not revealing them because this is a part of the spoiler. There are 2 that they start open. You have a rumor and you have a note. And there are some special scene cards that you're going to be revealing throughout the course of the game. There is this card that it starts the game, so there is also an objective here, okay, mandatory challenges, reclaim signature weapons at 101. So we need to go here and reclaim our signature weapons, which actually are these weapons that I set aside. These are our normal starting weapons, which we don't have available, and we need to recover them, okay. The next thing that we need to do is, another mandatory challenge we need to do is we need to search for a clue on position 102. But you can see it's locked for the moment. We cannot interact until we remove this token, okay? And there is we need to defeat Drakinas to find a way out. So we need to go through monster deck and try to defeat Drakinas in order to find the way out. I'm not focusing more on explaining things now, okay? This was part of just showing you the components and giving you a better understanding of the components of the game. There is also this booklet here, which has scenario specific mandatory challenges, you see? 102, search for a clue. It's the story, what happens, what you can do. So you can have the slot here with 102, which is I think with this location, or 101, which is for reclaiming the signature weapons here. Okay, give their own signature weapon to 1, 2 all players, cover the other challenges with the same name, or 3, 4 players, any 2 players. It's time to show them who's the boss. Okay, so this is for scenario 1. This is for scenario 2. Okay, quickly, no spoilers. There are no mandatory challenges for the introductory scenario. Okay, so this is only used from scenario 1 moving forward. And there you have it. I tried to be, as we also have companion cards based on scenario. They have this back. Okay, there are some things that may be forgetting, but this is the majority of the cards and components and tokens that you see in the game. And now let's move forward. Oh wait, forgot to mention the most important thing, at least for solo gamers, which I like playing solo games also. So there is the Lone Wolf board, and there is additional material for the Lone Wolf, okay? You can either, I'm not going to go through this, but there is a specific a variant also. For playing the game with 3 players, you use some components from the Lone Wolf, but also if you're playing true solo, you use the Lone Wolf board, and you use also the Lone Wolf cards and additional contents from this pack also. So this is extremely interesting because the game is also has its own tweak for especially for solo gamers. Right. Setup. First of all, we have the general setup. The first thing that we do is we open the scenario book to the current scenario, in this case scenario number 1, okay? But you start from the first scenario, the introductory scenario, then you move gradually through the scenarios. And we place it in the middle of the table, opening the 2 pages. There are always 2 pages from the campaign book that are used for setting up the map. We consult the setup section for any changes to the specific general instructions that I'm giving you now, because this could be part of the scenario as included in the scenario separate booklet that comes with the game and gives more instructions. Then we open the campaign book to the current scenario and place it in the middle of the table for everybody to play. This is the campaign book, okay? And the scenario book is the one that you don't see now in front of you, which gives additional details about setup, explains a bit some things scenario specific in more detail and so on. Then we place the Sentinel board next to the main board. I have it here to the side. I remind you, this is a Sentinel board, okay? Just showed you before, if you remember. This is a Sentinel board. I place it to the side. Preferably you can place it to the side of the campaign board, but for the moment I'm just placing it here so I can fit everything in my screen and have a better view for the video. Once you've done that, if you're about to play the prologue or scenario 1, you place red X tokens like this one on the spots on the bottom portion where we have alert sentinel monsters, like you see here in front of you. If you're playing scenario 2 moving forward, these do not go there because the bottom part of the sentinel board is active. Right. And then instead of putting the X tokens, we place alert encounter markers on each space. An alert encounter marker, it is like a normal encounter marker, but it has a red base, okay? This has just a red circle around it, because still it's a prototype, but it's going to have a clear red base. And this is going to be placed on these spots on the Sentinel board, and they're going to be used through the course of the game also. But for scenario 1 and prologue, of course, they're not used. Then you create a supply of the respective tokens. Let's zoom in. We need to have a supply of stamina, a supply of shield tokens, of respective strike modifiers, okay? And we can also have supply of ichor. There are additional things that we may use through the course of the game, like utility cubes, additional tokens, story tokens. These are not so frequently used because typically in the course of the scenario you use it typically during setup, but still you can keep them close in case you need any mid scenario. The next thing we do is we place landmark tokens as indicated by the scenario on the specific areas of the board, of the book I should say, and other map tokens, okay? That may be necessary based on what the scenario book is instructing, like this one, the green one here, this one, or additional loot tokens, etc. Okay, these loot tokens here, this one, and this weapon loot tokens here have been placed based on the scenario instruction for scenario 1 specifically. After you do that, you go to set up the monsters. You shuffle the monster cards specified in the scenario into a face-down deck and place it on the corresponding space on the Sentinel board. You draw a card and place it right next to the deck to the leftmost Sentinel space, meaning from this spot I'm going to place the first card here. Okay, so this is going to be the deck of the monsters, and it starts with one card, a Dracula, in this case, from this deck already revealed. There are 2 more slots for a total of 1, 2, 3. Here there is 1 more slot. Okay, and this is the deck. I remind you that for scenario 1 and prologue, the bottom part is not used. We just have a placeholder for defeated monsters here, but we don't use alert monsters over there. Just another quick note. This is the monster deck that came with scenario 1. Okay, there are different monsters for prologue scenario. Also, in the scenario book, it instructs me to remove 3 spawn cards from this deck and remove them. Okay. And then once I've done that, shuffle the deck with the remaining monsters. It says that it's consisted of Drakenas, of giant hands. Actually, these are the hands coming out of the center of the board. This is amazing. When I read it, it was wow. Or Sprawn. Okay, so these are the three type of monsters you have in this monster deck. You could also have boss monsters, for example, also. But for the moment, keep in mind that there may be additional instructions in the scenario book on how to set up the master deck to begin with. Otherwise, you just place the respective master deck in this slot. Next, each player is dealt one dice card, combat dice card reference with the faces of the dice, as I've shown you here, and one wave reference card, whether it's wave resolution in Battlefield, based when you are, or wave resolution under cover, in cover, if you're in cover. Okay, you have one player aid with the wave resolution card and one player aid with the fighting dice distribution, so it's an easy access for everyone to see. Next, we place a round structure card next to the main board with a side matching the player count face up and orientate it so that you can read the text for the upkeep phase. Okay, so you can see this is a round structure for 1 to 2 players. Okay, and you can use a cube to track where you're in wave 1, wave 2, or upkeep. But if you're playing 3 or 4 players, you use this side, which has also some additional steps with flipping a coin, which dictates if you go to shuffle position or swap position, depending on if it's head or tails. Okay, and there's some kind of some more additional rules. But you need to set this from this side if you're playing 3 or 4 players, or from the other side if you're playing less players. In any case, 1 or 2 players. In any case, you use a cube to track in if you're in wave 1, wave 2, or upkeep, respectively. If playing with 2 players, you will be part of a single team alpha. Randomly assign one player the alpha battlefield and the other player the alpha cover card, respectively. Then you return the remaining position cards to the box. You look for the A and B symbols on the fighting position cards. If you're playing 3 or 4 players, you will split into 2 teams of 2, an alpha and a beta. You shuffle the 2 alpha and 2 beta position cards together and randomly deal 1 to each player. You place your miniature on the main board in the zone specified by the scenario. This is regardless of 1, 2, or 3 or 4 players. So you place your hero in the zone and in the section that your scenario dictates. In this case, if I'm playing 4 players, scenario 1, one of the team is going to start here and the other team is going to start over there. One team starts specifically in this section, the dark cells, and the other one starts on the cells of torment. Okay, basically we're in prison and we're trying to escape, get our weapons, and get back to Hades for what he has done to us, right? So once you've done that, the map is divided into zones. So let's focus on the map. You see, there is not a conventional grid-based map. This is based on zones, and I really like this approach. I wish more companies were doing that in this type of games. The map is divided into zones by a dashed line. For example, the dark cells, you see, has a dashed line all the way here. So all this is the zone of the dark cells. Respectively, this zone here is the giant's lair. So all this zone here, you focus on the dashed lines, create a zone. Okay? That being said, now each zone is further divided between a slightly darkened and a larger battlefield area. So there is the blue dotted line which divides each zone into a cover area, slightly darkened, and a larger battlefield area. For example, you see here again the giant's lair. It has this side below the dotted blue line, which is the cover area. This is an area, cover area, and this is the battle area. Respectively, here our heroes start from the cover area. They are behind this blue dotted line within their zone of dark cells, and this area here is the dark cells. The battlefield area. So this is a battlefield area, this is a cover area, and all of it together makes the whole zone of the dark cells. And that's how the map works in general. We're going to explain a bit more on the arrows and the different peculiarities of the board and some more things to keep in mind, but for the moment this is how you set up the game. The last thing you do is you shuffle the weapon loot cards to form a weapon face down weapon deck near the board. Okay, so you shuffle the weapon cards, you place them near the board, but also its scenario may tell you to do something specifically. For example, in this case it tells us to place 3 weapon loot cards and reveal those weapon cards. So the sawtooth blade and the whip, etc., are already revealed, spread on the let's say display area, and it's already visible. But in other cases you will have a face down weapon loot deck. You do the same for the loot feature cards and the same for the loot item cards. For the moment there are no items, okay, but in general you have loot weapon cards, loot fit cards like this, which is here. This is a face up fit card, and you also have fit action cards, and you also have fit item loot item cards. So the fact if they start normally these will be face down decks, but for this specific scenario I'm instructed to place them as you see in front of you. We also place the loot tokens as indicated by the scenario here and here, for example. Okay, the number of loot tokens, the type of loot tokens, and the position of the loot tokens is dictated by the scenario specifics. For each loot token on the main board, you draw the top card of the corresponding loot deck. In this case, my weapon deck had only 3 cards. That's why, since I opened 3 loot weapon cards, I revealed 3 loot weapon cards, and I have them face up. But normally, only the number of loot tokens is linked with how many face up cards you're going to reveal from the loot deck it corresponds to. That you do that for each loot token on the main board, and then you place any companion cards, which are, in this scenario I have a Persephone servant. This is a companion. I place them him face up next to the main area, and the players can tap and use them. Companions, okay, but more on that later. And you place any primordial deity cards specified by the scenario face up in the general display next to the main board, and place 3 blessing curse tokens on top of each such card with 2 of their blessing sides and 1 in its curse side. I haven't done this for this scenario because it starts moving forward from scenario 2 onwards. Also for scenario 2 onwards, I also introduced the oracle cards, which you don't see now. They're part of scenario 2 moving onwards. You shuffle the oracle cards specified in the scenario book, and you make them a face down deck. And then you collectively choose if you want to play an easy, medium or hard difficulty. And I also like the option of choosing between 3 difficulties, but I'll explain what that means more later. Character setup. Now, each player should resolve the following steps. First of all, you place on your character board in front of you, and you place your character in the respective slot in the center. If it is the prologue you're playing, on the prologue side, okay, that's why it has a P, and this goes here. Use the standard side of a character board instead if you're playing forward from scenario 1 moving forward, like this one, okay. Then you place a card in the corresponding space of the character board here. Also keep in mind that if you were playing the prologue, as I mentioned, you wouldn't be playing from this side of the recessed board. You would have it flipped from this side, which is the prologue side. It's the back of the board, which has an easier way to introduce you into the game by starting, and this is where every player should start from, the prologue. You take from scenario 2 onwards, you take the item cards. Remember, getting our signature weapons is part of scenario 1, and this is really nice. We're trying to get our weapons back. But moving forward from scenario 2 forward, this is a signature weapon for Athena, for example. Okay, sorry, for Artemis. This spear is for Spear of Judgment is for Athena. So this is a signature weapon, and you can see it from this icon. So for any type of scenario at this moment, moving forward from scenario 2 and on, we would take the weapons in our character inventory from our character's compartment and place them next to our character board. Okay, so I'll have Athena will have her spear, in this case, Spear of Judgment, and she will have it next to her to be able to use it through the course of the game from scenario 2 onward. You place a shield board like this one over here next to your character board. Okay, the scenario book will specify what you should set your resource dials to. Okay, I have already set it up for scenario 1. For example, my carry capacity is 3, in line with my carry capacity on my character. But let's say, for example, Nectar is 1 because my scenario 1 page is dictating that I'm going to place Nectar 1, Spark 2, and so on. If you're playing the prologue, you ignore the divinity completely, which is this one over here, this stat. This resource, I should say better. Otherwise, you also set it up according to the scenario. From now on, if you're moving to scenario 2, you will carry over resources from previous scenarios. You will set the resource dials based on your campaign log. And I'm going to explain, or at least mention briefly, how the campaign logs work, if everything doesn't fall apart. But you're going to have a campaign log where you're going to track your resources, as you can see here. And you're going to be carrying over resources from scenario to scenario, which is nice. And it gives you a consistency from how well you did from the previous scenario. You're going to continue with the progression down the road. Now, you place Ichor tokens, as you see here, equal to your value of Ichor starting tokens that you have here. This is the number of Ichor you can have. In this case, Athena can have 2, so we place 1, 2 yellow Ichor tokens on the slots here. Instead, from scenario 2 moving forward, instead of doing that, you find a number of Ichor tokens equal to your maximum Ichor level, and you place Ichor tokens equal to your current health as shown in the campaign log onto your character board, and you place the remaining Ichor tokens on your character card, meaning that you take over the status of your Ichor / health from scenario to scenario moving forward. Also, this will make more sense later on. If you have any exclamation like this one, tokens blocking some of your abilities, okay, you need to carry them, or X or exclamation tokens from previous scenarios, you need to carry them over according to your campaign log also. We take the fit cards from our character's compartment into our hand. These are these cards here. They're dual-sided. I should say they have 2 sides, the top and the bottom, right, where you can play for either the upper part when you're supporting the Battlefield actions, or from the blue side when you're supporting the cover actions. Now, these are character specific. You can see that they have an icon here indicating that these belong to Athena. That's why they're in their character pack. Okay, so they take them into their hand. The game, as I said, advises to keep things spread out so that you can easily access them. They're considered to be in your hand, but it's easy for you to see them, also to collaborate with your teammates. You remove a fit card action from your hand randomly and you put it into the Oblivion. I have done this already because I had 4, so one of those went there. You can get back actions from the Oblivion, but I will see more on that later. The next thing that we do is we take 1 challenge action card into our hand, and we take 1 additional challenge action card into our hand if we are playing for the first scenario moving forward. Okay, so we only have 1 for the prologue, but we're going to have 2 moving forward. These are these sides, they have this back side, the challenge cards. Again, these are considered into your hand, okay, and you're going to be trying to achieve them through the course of the game. Again, these are coming from the character pack. Then we take the 3 main action cards with a single Battlefield icon. These are the cards with this back here. So, from these that you have in your character compartment, you may have more over the course of the campaign. You select at least for the prologue scenario, the ones that have a single Battlefield icon, so those 3 here, right? Moving forward from scenario 1 and forward, what you can do is you could be selecting out of the ones you have any 3 ones, but since you have all those 4 from your character pack, it says to replace one with a single Battlefield with one which has to select 2 different actions from the Battlefield actions. Okay, so you start with 1, 2, and the one which has 2 on the top. So this is your starting hand for scenario 1. Then from scenario 1 forward, you place one utility cube, one white cube, on your player board in the first space of the defeated monster track, which is over here, tracking the monsters you have defeated. Lastly, you place your character upgrade tiles on the corresponding parts of your player board. For the first scenario, you place level 1 upgrade tiles, otherwise your campaign log will specify which level upgrade tiles you should place, meaning you would have theoretically upgraded some specific action tiles, options, and then you keep the remaining upgrade tiles into the character's compartment box. For scenario 1, which I have been demonstrating here throughout so far, just a quick demonstration how this works in practice. These come into your character pack to begin with. You can see that it's level 1 because it has level 1. You can see that this is a Battlefield action tile because it's yellow background. And you can see also that this corresponds to Drain specifically, which has this icon, which matches this icon here. So theoretically, it should go there, and this is where it goes for scenario 1, right? So I have placed the ones in the corresponding slots, the same for the cover actions on the right. But over the course of the game, you will have upgraded sections and tiles for some of your slots depending on how you progress, and you'll have them replaced in your compartment box and logged into your campaign log respectively. So you'll put those there. Overview. First of all, we have the campaign structure. Reign of Hades campaign is broken into a series of scenarios. Each scenario is played out over the main board, contained on a 2-page spreadsheet. Actually 2 pages from the campaign book, I should say better. And your objectives there are very special rules for each scenario, which are laid out on the scenario book. So you have the campaign book, which is this one. You have the scenario book, which is a separate book, which indicates clearly the objectives and what you're trying to achieve. So you should pay attention to that. You'll carry over action, item, and weapon cards between scenarios. It's going to be part of your upgrading and development of your characters also, as you move along with the scenarios and the story itself. And this will be tracked on their placement compartments. Typically in this prototype, this is where zip bags, but maybe they have some other options during the course of the campaign, how well it goes, most probably. Just guessing here. And there are other elements which include your progress in the campaign generally, which will be tracked also on the campaign log, which I have showed you, and it is looking something like that, which will be useful for moving from campaign to campaign, from scenario to scenario in the same campaign. Now, let's move over here in the round structure and how we can track our progress with the utility cube on the round structure card, respectively. As you see, this card has 2 sides. I showed you before, this is the side for 3 or 4 players, and which uses also the coin and the extra step, which the flip of the coin decides if you shuffle positions or if you swap positions during the upkeep phase. Okay, but it's very similar in a 1 to 2 player, which is the back side of this card. In any case, you have this utility cube moving from wave 1 to wave 2 to the upkeep, so it tracks the progress of the round, and then you can easily remember the steps and follow the respective steps depending on your player count, of course. Now let's see some core concepts of the game. First of all, I've mentioned that we have teams. Characters in Reign of Hades are divided into teams. With 2 players, you play as one team of 2 alpha, and your characters will be active during both waves of a round, meaning wave 1 and wave 2. At 4 players, you play as 2 teams of alpha, 2 teams of alpha and beta, with the alpha team active during wave 1 and the beta team active during wave 2, the second wave. While characters are divided into teams for the purpose of gameplay, the game is cooperative. Players win together or lose together as a team. As such, players are encouraged to plan together and offer suggestions to their teammates, organize their thoughts, offer advice, and get the best out of the gameplay. Now, let's see how the main board and positions are, and the concept of these positions is used into the game, because as I mentioned, we have the cover and the battlefield, which is a fundamental value in the game and dictates a lot of things. In Reign of Hades, characters will be moving between zones on the main board, attempting to achieve scenario-specific objectives, to go to specific locations, to do specific interactions, and trying to get things based on the scenario and the objectives they're facing. So, even though these are scenario-specific objectives, the key element is the main basic division of the positions between cover and battlefield. Within each zone that I've shown you before, there are 2 sections, the battlefield section and the cover section. In each team, one character will always be in cover and one will be on the battlefield. Throughout the game, characters will swap between these positions, and when a character swaps position, they move their miniature to the corresponding section of the zone they are in. Meaning, if they were like that, meaning Zeus was here on the battlefield of this zone, fighting or interacting, and this character, Artemis, is in the cover, on the black shaded section, when they would be switching, he would go undercover and she would go onto the battlefield. Now, there are specific ways that it happens, especially with the 4 players, and this is dictated if you just, when you go into the upkeep phase, if you will be shuffling positions or if you'll be swapping positions, which is a bit different, but more on that later. The main concept is that in your team, one of the 2 characters will be controlled by the players, will be on the battlefield and having access on the right side of their main board for the battlefield actions. The other one would be under cover, the blue shaded area, and they will be having access to the right side of their cover actions respectively, and this is going to be changing between the 2 characters. Following this basic concept, remember we have our action cards, which are divided into battlefield section and cover section. Action cards are the core of how you do things in Reign of Hades. Each action card has a side that can be played while you're on the battlefield, this one, and a side which can be played while you're in cover. You orientate your action cards to match your character's position action cards. Sometimes you gain resources or different things, and you need to be doing that based on the cost of resources when you play this affected. And to take an action, you place an action card from your hand with a corresponding icon into an empty slot at the bottom of your character board. So let me pick up this one and let's move. Where you can see at the bottom of your player board, you have slots for playing action cards, so you can play it as that, orientating the battlefield action up, or as such, orientating the cover action respectively. Of course, you will be acquiring different types of action cards over the course of the game. So, for example, if you play this one, this side, you'll have the option of performing 2 different battlefield actions from this side, and you're going to be getting very specific action cards in the course of the game that can give you different combinations and possibilities to explore. But in any case, it's a very cool concept because it combines the action card, the orientation of the action card, and the position of your miniature, which gives you access to different type of actions, battlefield or cover, based on where you are located each time in a zone. Now, by doing this, so far I have only used and show you the main action cards, which is this type of action. But keep in mind, you also have fit action cards, okay, like these ones, which are also divided into battlefield and cover, okay, and are played also below your player board. And we also have challenge cards, which have a top, you see, the icon, this is the battlefield section, and this is the cover section, and they also go on these slots. So 3 types of actions: main action cards, fit action cards, and challenge action cards. A word for each of those. The main action cards, like this one over here, allow you to resolve main actions shown on your character board on the left or on the right, as I've said before. On the battlefield, for each such icon you place, here I have a selection of 2, but if I was placing this action card, I only have 1, for example. So for each such icon you see, you choose and resolve one of the battlefield main actions that you have here on the left side of your player board. In cover, for each such icon, cover icon, you would be selecting one of these cover actions and performing it respectively. We're going to go into the breakdown of the different actions for battlefield and cover and what they do later on, but this is the main concept of how you enable them based on the action card you played and their orientation. Fit action cards like this one have effects related to combat. The battlefield side, the battlefield half of the fit action, has effects that increase your combat ability. In this case, you see the 2 shields. More on that later. The cover side of the fit card, the blue one, this one, the top one, can only be played to increase the combat ability of your other character in your team, and they have a range, typically, as you can see. Here has 0 range, but it could have different range, okay, 1 to 2, etc. They have a range, and they can all be played from the other character in your team in a, if your other character in your team is in a zone within that range, meaning in this case the character needs to be within the same zone. So you will be undercover, and your other character will be in Battlefield, and you will support them only if you are within the same range. Okay, so these are supporting based on the range they can access the battlefield and the other character participating in the battlefield. Last but not least, we have the challenge cards over here. These allow you to do specific scenario challenges, which are often required in order to win scenarios. Okay, and you'll understand more on that later. So these are the three different types of action cards. Now let's speak about resources. Your character has access to 6 resources in the game. First of all, we have the Ichor, which is here, this wooden Ichor token. Ichor is your health. Each time your character loses Ichor, you move an Ichor token from the character board to your character card over here. Each time a character gains an Ichor, you move the Ichor token from your character card back on the respective slot on the board. We'll see how wound sections are affecting this later on, but for the moment this is what you need to know, that this is very important and it's linked with your health. Now, moving on your shield board, you can see that you're tracking different resources. Let's focus first on the Nectar, which has this icon here. Nectar is mostly spent to take actions that gain you Ichor, gain you strength, or increase the power of your attacks, and it's very, very important. Okay? Same goes for Might, which is over here and has this icon. Might represents the agility of your god. Some actions and effects will require you to spend Might in order to perform them, so you need to have Might also. Then you have Spark. Spark has this icon over here. It's tracked with this dial. It's yellow, color based, and represents creativity or ingenuity. It is mostly spent as part of actions that gain you weapons, items, and action cards. So these are very valuable to acquire more assets for your play. Then we have the Divinity over here, which is used from scenario 1 moving forward, meaning this scenario that I'm demonstrating, but not in the prologue. Divinity is a measure of your success, and it's used to upgrade your character during scenarios. So this is very important to level up, okay, and become better and bigger and stronger. And last but not least, you have the Carry Capacity. Carry Capacity represents how much your character can carry. It is mostly spent as part of your actions that gain you weapons and items, and this resource will only be gained as a result of character card evolution. Okay, so for example, here I start by putting number 3 here, value for my carry capacity, because you see over here the starting capacity of Athena is 3, and this will dictate how many weapons, what is the weight and the capacity of weapons, items that I can carry, and you need to have high numbers so you can carry more. Monsters. Monsters represent servants of Hades, and you will need to defeat them in progress towards the scenario completion. So you need to achieve you need to defeat a lot of monsters because they are between you and your objectives typically. Whenever you start a wave in a battlefield section with an encounter marker, I remind you these are the encounter markers on the map, okay? These nice miniatures. So whenever you start a wave with an encounter marker on the map, then what you need to do is you need to move into battlefield section with an encounter marker, and monsters will spawn in this way. Monsters spawned in this way will be placed next to your character board and as engaged monsters. Okay, so you will get monsters which will be spawned, and they're going to go next to your player board, and they're going to be engaged with you because you were next to encounter miniatures during this the wave. To defeat an engaged monster, you need to deal damage equal to its stamina value. We'll see more about the anatomy of the cards, but for the moment, take a note that this is the stamina of the monster. Okay, and you will be able to, you'll have different types of monsters, okay? They're going to have different abilities, they're going to have different art, and they're going to have, okay, this is the same amount of stamina, but different stamina, etc. So you need to deal the damage of indicated stamina value here in order to defeat it. To deal damage to a monster, you generally need to make start combat main action, or use a brawl character ability, and this will allow you to assign a combat die to the monsters, okay? So by doing so and by assigning combat dice to the monsters, you would be able, based on the course of the game and the weapons you have, etc., you would be able to deal damage to the monsters respectively. We'll explain combat later on, but for the moment make a note that once you will be assigning combat dice to the master, you will then be able to make further actions to manipulate and power up those dice, and then when you're ready you'll be able to resolve the combat bonus action to determine the result of the combat and the outcome. During combat resolution, if you deal enough damage to a monster, you defeat its card, and this card will be turned upside down and discarded at the end of the wave at the bottom of the discarded monsters pile, the defeated monsters. In addition, the next thing that happens, you will be able to move forward with your plans. But let's say if you didn't manage to defeat the card, it will take some damage and will become tapped. Monsters have an infliction effect which will trigger at the end of a wave if they are engaged with you and you did not resolve combat against them. Okay? And this will be seen and described later on. But for the moment, keep in mind that this is something that you don't want to do. You don't want to have monsters that you didn't engage during combat, because they will inflict the infliction effect on you, which is something negative and you want to avoid. In addition, monsters that have not been defeated at the end of the wave are added to the monster slots in the Sentinel board over here, okay? Because I'm demonstrating this, but imagine that these are engaged and next to your player board. But if you didn't defeat them, they're going to move from next to your player board here on the Sentinel board. We'll explain again more about the combat later on. But if these monster slots are full and you would need to place another monster there, depending on the difficulty you're playing the game, there will be further consequences and even the chance of losing the game altogether. Now let's see the run structure in detail. We have the wave 1 phase. If playing with 2 players, both characters are active during this wave. If we're playing 3 or 4 players, only characters in the alpha team are active during wave 1. Characters in the beta team will be active during wave 2. And for the moment, if we're playing scenario 1 or the prelude, we ignore the reveal oracle card and the phase which goes from scenario 2 moving forward. Oracle cards are the cards which have this background, as you can see, and they have this format, okay? But this is going to affect and into play moving forward from scenario 2 onwards. So if you're playing prelude or scenario 1, you can ignore them for the moment. If nonetheless you're playing scenario 2, then you reveal one oracle card. You reveal an oracle card, and I'm just going to show you now how the oracle cards look like and keep them here for a moment. You reveal one of the oracle cards, and you choose and resolve one of the paths listed. Sorry, yeah, it's like that. You can see that there are 2 paths listed. You have the cautious, which is linked like that, and then you have the fearless, which is linked with the blue side like that. Each oracle card has 2 paths, okay, and you need to resolve one of the paths listed. We'll see more details about the oracle cards, but for the moment, if you are playing scenario 2 moving forward, at this step what you do, and you can see it in the breakdown of the round structure, reveal an oracle card, it's said here on the wave 1, okay? You will reveal, face swap one of those and choose a path. You place the resolved card into a discard pile next to the oracle card deck, and you orientate it to the side corresponding to the path chosen, and such that you can see the total number of times you have selected that path, meaning this path or that path, okay? So you need to place it like that or like that, and you can track how many times you chose this path or that path. So this is what happens at this stage, and this is only applicable if you're playing moving forward from scenario 2. Then you see that the next stage is, and let me just bring this up so that we can see it in more detail, and this is regardless if you're playing with 3 or 4 players or if you're playing with 1 or 2 players. You first reveal one oracle card, but it only applies from scenario 2 moving forward and onwards. Then we have the monsters engage. Still we're within wave 1, regardless of the player count. We have the monsters engage step. The player whose character is active and in the battlefield position resolves the following steps. For each encounter marker in the section where your character is, for example, if my character was here, let's say in the battlefield, I would have 2 encounter markers, okay? So for each encounter marker in the section your character is in, you draw a card from the monster deck and place it next to your character board and engage that monster. Meaning I will draw one card from the character deck, the monster, and I will place it next to me. Okay, if I had 2, I will draw 1 and 1, 2, for example. And I will put them next to my player board, and they will be engaged with me specifically. So next to my player board for Athena. Then, for scenario 2 moving forward, if there is an alert encounter marker on this section, meaning if instead of having simple encounter markers, you have an alert encounter marker, which is the mini with the red base. Okay, this is going to be more visible during the final production of the game. Then what you do is, if it's in the same section with you, you roll the fate die, and for each monster in alert slots, you check if the value rolled is equal to the fate die value of its alert slot. If it is, you place that monster next to your character board and as an engaged monster. If you place the monster in this manner, you return the alert encounter marker from the zone you're into the slot of the sentinel board, which is here. Okay, so we have here X's because these are not applicable for scenario 1, but you will have encounter markers coming, alert encounter markers coming back and forth in these slots based on this process as I described. Now, regardless of if you're playing scenario 1 or scenario 2, if there are monsters in your lure slots on your character board, you untap them and place them next to your character board as engaged monsters. So you may have at this moment some monsters next to you engaged because you start your phase of wave 1 of the monster engaged into a battlefield with other encounters. But on top of that, if you had from previous situation, from before, in your lure slots, which are on the top of your player board, monsters tapped to the sideways because these are lured and, let's say, distracted in a way, okay? Then you need to take them also together with the other and put them next to your, from the lure slots, like that. Take them and place them next to your player board together with any other, and also have them as engaged, okay? If you have occupied lured slots. Then, if you're playing the scenario 1, you cover the distract icon between lure slots with an X. I haven't done it here, okay? If you're playing scenario 1 or the prelude. And from scenario 2 onwards, from now on, lured monsters can be further distracted following the process for them. If there is a monster in the rightmost lure slot of your character board, here, you untap the rightmost, okay? You untap it, and then you place it next to your character board as engaged monster. Then from right to left, for each monster in a lure slot, you may spend 1 spark, as long as you have spark to spend. Then if you decide to do so, if you do not spend a spark, the monster is untapped and placed next to your character board as engaged monster. If you do spend a spark, you move the monster into the lure slot to the right one of the currently in. Basically, this is a way to keep, let's say, occupied monsters lured, so you don't have to face them at the moment, and shift your focus on something other, something else, especially if you're overwhelmed with monsters and you want to deal them later. But it's only if you have spark to keep them lured there, otherwise they will become engaged and you'll have to face them. Now, the next step in the sequence after monsters engage is we take actions, okay? What happens here is we are in the take actions step and bonus action, and during this phase, if your character is active, you take actions by playing action cards in the slots, okay? Corresponding icons face up into action slots of your character board, and in addition, active characters may take bonus actions which do not require playing any action cards. You may resolve actions or bonus actions in any combination and order you wish. Unless otherwise specified, you must resolve an action or bonus action in its entirety before taking another action or bonus action, and move to the next one. There are icons associated with main action cards, okay? And there is a list of that so that you can understand more about that. But keep in mind that this icon here, or this one here, this is the Battlefield main action. You choose and resolve one of your Battlefield main actions listed on your character board. So this one, that one, this one, that one, or that one, or that one, okay? If you have 2 different Battlefield main actions, like this action card here, that means you need to choose 2 from the list, but 2 different ones. So you cannot select, for example, fill cap or lure 2 times, okay? You need to do 2 different ones. You choose and resolve 2 different Battlefield main actions listed on your character board on the left, on the Battlefield actions, the yellow ones, and you must complete your first action before choosing your second one. You may take a bonus action between resolving your first and your second main action as expected. Then this icon is the cover main action. You choose and resolve one of the cover main actions listed on the character board from this option on the right. So you can do rest, you can do lure attack, you can do heal, you can do focus, or you can do sneak. You need to play an action card like that, okay, in order to do so. Okay, so this would be a realistic scenario. Okay, I'm in cover, so I'm playing action cards in cover. Okay, you choose and you resolve one cover main actions listed on your action board. If you played this one, for example, then you need to do one of the actions here. Now, let's move into more details about the different actions, and let's start by focusing first, and let me zoom in on the player board. So, first of all, this icon, as you can see, is the move icon. So when you make a move action, you move your character to an adjacent zone. Then any number of times you may pay 1 nectar to repeat this movement. And you can see that by this explanation here. Okay, so this is the move action. You can move one your character one adjacent zone, okay, by doing that only, and then you can keep paying 1 nectar to repeat this and move further and further and further so that you can go exactly where you want, or if you're further away from your destination. We'll go a bit more again into zones and districts and explain them, but for the moment this is what you need to know. You move from one zone to an adjacent zone with the move. If you move into a zone containing an encounter marker, okay, so if you move into a zone which has one encounter marker, okay, then what happens is you draw a monster card and you place it in front of you as an engaged monster, as expected. From scenario 1, instead of simply drawing a monster card and add it up in up the number of encounter markers in the zone, you just in the zone you just left. So basically, instead of drawing as many monster cards as in your destination minis of encounters, what you do is you add up the number of encounter markers in the zone you just left and each zone you enter during the movement, and your destination, of course, where you end up, and then you roll the fate die and adding the modifier indicated next to your move icon on your character board. And if you roll higher than the number of encounter markers, nothing happens. If you roll equal or lower on the number of encounter markers, you draw 1 card from the master deck and place it next to your character board as engaged master. You may choose to forego this roll if you want to draw an enemy monster from the enemy deck and do it intentionally, to put it next to you, and this may be as part of scenario specific requirements, etc. But if you succeed in not drawing an engaged monster by going through this process, you may do it tactically because you want to shift your focus somewhere else. Next action is this one, the discover, and has this icon. You take this action in a zone with a loot token. For example, we can have, these are the weapon loot tokens. Let me show you. Okay, like this one. So if your character is in a zone with 1 loot token, for the scenario, for the moment we have this type of loots to begin with, but you'll find more loot tokens to discover during the next scenarios. You remove a loot token from the zone you're in and you gain any 1 card in the discovery market matching the type of removed loot tokens. In this case I would remove 1 of those and I would gain 1 of the weapons that are in the discover market face up, and I will add it to my character to use it further on. When discovering a weapon, you pay both the spark and carry capacity cost indicated on the card and add the weapon card to your inventory. You see, there is a capacity and spark cost that you need to pay so that you can add it to your inventory and let's say equip it. From scenario 1 moving forward, there will be a fit action card, loot to discover. So you have this loot icon, and that would mean that you have also fit action cards to discover and pick them up, so you can add them to your roster of cards that you can use. When discovering a fit card, you pay the spark cost indicated on the card similarly, and then you add it to your hand and it's available for you to use. From scenario 2 moving forward, you'll have also this icon of loot tokens and respective loot cards, okay? That means when you discover an item, you pay both the spark and carry capacity indicated on the card, and then you add it to your inventory, and this will give you also additional things and abilities. Now, let's move to the next action, which is very important. It's the start combat. You take this action when you have at least one untapped weapon in your inventory. Meaning, if I don't have any untapped, meaning standing still, standing uprights, weapon in my inventory, I cannot take the start the combat action. If my weapon cards are tapped, I cannot take this action. Okay, so you need to have this at least one weapon card untapped. In addition, you choose untap the untapped weapon in your inventory to initiate the start combat action. And in addition to the weapon's effects, could be a variety of effects depending on the weapon you have. For example, let me take the spear. Since we have Athena, this is the weapon she's trying to get back, the signature weapon. Okay, so in addition to the weapon effects, immediately apply any modifiers shown on your character board. Okay, and or upgrade tiles you may have. To the master, you are assigning a die to initiate the combat. Okay, so you will be assigning combat dice based on your weapon card, on engaged masters you have next to you, and you will be initiating this attack by starting the combat action. You take the indicated dice from the general supply, you roll any dice outlined with the rolled icon, which has a die and arrows going around it. You set any dice to the side from 1 to 6, indicated on the set die. If it says, for example, take a die and set it to value 4 here. So that means that if I take that, I would take a blue die and put it in a value of 4. So it would be this one. Where is it? Here. Okay. So I will place it like that on a monster when I'm attacking with such a die. Let's say, for example. Right. So as the name of the action implies, this only marks the beginning of the combat. You have a variety of options to modify the outcome in your favor, and once you're ready to conclude the combat, you may take the Resolve Combat bonus action, which is free, to proceed into the resolution of the combat. Monsters have a number of die slots shown on their card, as you've seen before. Usually it's typically 1. You cannot assign more than 1 die to a monster that has die slots, and you must assign a dice until either you have no more dice or there are no more engaged monsters with empty slots, like this, in the center, next to you. If there are no more engaged monsters with empty slots, optionally you may assign a die to a monster on the Sentinel board, and immediately you place it next to your character board as an engaged monster. Any dice not assigned to monsters are then lost and returned to the general supply. So this is how you start the combat. From scenario 2 moving forward, there will be alert slots on the Sentinel board. Remember, we have placed this to block these spots, but these are going to be available from scenario 2 moving forward. If there are no more engaged monsters with empty die slots, for each alert encounter marker in the zone you're in, you may assign a die to a monster in an alert zone on the Sentinel board, here, okay? And in doing so, each time you assign a die, you place the monster card next to your character board as an engaged monster and return an alert encounter marker from the zone you're into the vacated slot on the Sentinel board. Then if there are no alert encounter markers anywhere on the map, and you still have dice, you may assign it to dice monsters in non-alert slots on the Sentinel board above. Keep in mind that each time you assign a die to a monster on the Sentinel board, you place them next to your character board as an engaged monster. And each time you assign a die to a monster in a slot on the Sentinel board, you gain a divinity on your shield board here, which tracks divinity as a resource for you. Let's move back to the player board. Another action you can have is the fill cap, which I'm pointing towards now. From scenario 1 moving forward, you gain the nectar indicated next to the fill cap icon on your character board. Okay, in this case, for example, I would gain 1 nectar if I take this action. Next is the lure, which is here, like your lure monsters on your lure slots on above your player board. You choose a tapped engaged monster you have next to your board in the left, and you choose a tapped engaged monster and place it in the leftmost lure slot on your character board. Okay, so in the leftmost lured slot, you take it, you'll have engaged monsters. I remind you, you'll have them next to your board like that, and you take one and you place it on your leftmost lure slot on your player board. First, you move that monster to the middle lure slot. If there is also a monster in the middle slot, you move that monster to the rightmost lure slot. You may not take this action if you have no empty lure slots, of course, as you can understand. From scenario 1, after luring a monster, you may optionally move an encounter marker from your zone to an adjacent zone or vice versa, which is a tactical option for you to do in order to deal better with monsters. Another action you can do is the drain over here. You take this action if you have defeated the monster in this wave, meaning you have a monster and it is upside down, indicating that you have defeated it. And if you take the drain action here, then you choose a defeated upside down monster next to your character board, you flip it to the face down side, and a number of times equal to the defeated monster's energy level shown on the card below the stamina of the monster, you choose one of the following. You gain 1 might or you gain 1 spark. Okay? Then this change slightly it's modified slightly if you're playing from scenario 2 moving forward, because you have one more option, but we'll see that later. Okay? For the moment, this covers all the battlefield actions on the left side of the board. Now let's move to the cover main actions. Here we start with this icon here, which is the sneak. You move your character to an adjacent zone, and then any number of times you may pay 1 might to move your character to an adjacent zone, and it's indicated here. Okay? As opposed to the Battlefield move action, this is a way of moving between zones without the risk of monsters engaging you, which is very important, and no monster card gets drawn. From scenario 1 moving forward, you have the focus, where you look at the number of cards from the top of your Oblivion pile. This is your Oblivion pile, it's below my shield here. It has this icon, and they're face down cards. And when you do the focus, you look at the number of cards to the from the top of your Oblivion pile, indicated next to the focus action. Okay, here. Here. Okay. And from these cards, you put a number of back into your hand, indicated next to your focus action on your character board, and return the rest to the top of the Oblivion pile in any order. After upgrading, up to the number of times indicated next to your focus action on your character board, you flip face down cards in action slots on your player board face up. Then you have the prey action, which is covered for scenario 1. You only use it from scenario 2 moving forward. Okay, but let's explain. For the moment, prey is covered. Okay, this action is not available for now. It will be explained later on. Actually, let's explain it now. If you're playing scenario 2 moving forward, you choose one of the 2 options. You either flip a cursed token. These are the cursed tokens. Okay. You flip a curse token to its blessing side. This is a blessing side. This is a curse token from the curse side. Okay, so you flip it to the blessing side. You or you activate a primordial deity blessing effect by flipping the corresponding number of blessing tokens to the curse side. We don't have this because we're not playing scenario 2, so they're not included. That's why we have blocked this action for the moment. Next action is heal. This should be like that. Next action is heal. So you spend nectar to gain 1 ichor up to the maximum ichor level indicated on your character board. Okay, so you cannot go beyond above. You may repeat this action a number of times as indicated next to the heal action on your character board, because if you upgrade it, you may do it more than once, for example. Okay. Then we have the lure attack, which is this one. When choosing the lure attack, you choose a monster on the sentinel board You tap the chosen monster and place it on your leftmost lure slot on your character board. And if there is a monster already in the leftmost lure slot, you move that monster to the middle lure slot. If there is also in the middle, then you move it to the right. From scenario 2 moving forward, you take the action. When you take this action, you must be in a section with an alert encounter marker, or there must be no alert encounter markers anywhere on the map. If there is a zone with an alert encounter marker, you choose a monster card in an alert slot on the sentinel board. If there are no alert encounter markers anywhere on the map, you choose a monster in a non-alert slot on the sentinel board. If the monster you chose goes from an alert slot, you return the alert encounter marker from the zone you are in to the vacated slot on the sentinel board, as you would expect. Regardless of scenario 1 or 2, you may now not take this action if you have no empty lure slots on your character board as expected. Next, what you do is you roll the fate die, you're adding the modifier indicated next to your lure attack action here. Okay, you add this number to the from the lure attack on your character board. You add this number from the roll, and if the roll is greater than the monster's vigilance value, you deal damage equal to the difference tracking its current stamina using stamina tokens. If you deal damage equal to or greater than its remaining stamina, the monster of course is defeated and the stamina tokens are removed, and immediately you place this monster into the discard card. From scenario 1 moving forward, whenever you defeat a monster, you advance 1 space on the defeat monster track, which is a separate board which tracks how much, which is tracked here in showing you how many monsters you have defeated. Last option is the rest. When you choose to do the rest, you choose one of the following. Either you gain 1 might, or you gain 1 nectar, or you gain 2 spark, okay, or you gain 1 upgrade, a main action. Keep in mind that this is for scenario 1 moving forward, okay, because if you play with the preload, you only choose to gain 1 might or 1 spark, or 2 spark, sorry. Okay, the other options are available to you once you're playing from scenario 1 moving forward. Upgrading a main action. You choose up to 1 main action with an upgrade tile on your push limits action, a bonus action. You pay the divinity cost indicated on the corresponding upgrade tile on your character board, and you flip that upgrade tile and place it on your shield board. Meaning you take you place it from here, and you place it like that, and you start collecting those around your shield board. Okay, you get the next number of respective token. You upgrade it, so you have rest as a level 2, let's say, tile. Okay, you take the next upgrade tile and you place it on the vacant spot, face up on your player board. Now, from scenario 2 moving forward, we have character card evolution. When if there are 5 upgrade tiles here collected on your inner slots of your shield board, you replace your character card, and from character 1 you move to the upgraded one, which is character 2, which has better stats, etc, etc. If the majority, depending on the majority of the upgrade tiles, source on your shield board, cover or battlefield, meaning blue or yellow, you replace the character card with the next level one. If the majority are from cover, you use the cover core blue level number on the top right corner. If it is from the battlefield, you use the battlefield core yellow level number, side face up. Okay, so meaning this is a battlefield and this is a cover. So if you had more blue, you have it from this side. If you have more battlefield, you have it from the opposite side. So these are all the actions as explained on the in more detail from the player board. Now we have the bonus actions. Remember, we can have the bonus actions either before or after or in between our main actions. But there is a variety of those. For example, we have resolve combat that you see. You choose one of untapped engaged monsters that has a combat die assigned to it, and then you resolve the following steps. You start with the hits. If the die you assign to the master has a higher hit value than you have shield tokens on the master card, you lose one ichor, and you move the lost ichor from your character board to any wound space on your character card. The impact of the wounds will become more clear later on in the game. From scenario 1, the wounds just result in ongoing disadvantages. Also, shield tokens reduce the hit value, so you have a variety of sources for gaining shield tokens. You can get them from upgrading start combat actions, you can gain them from weapon abilities, and you have shield tokens placed on monsters as a result of a defense feat action. From scenario 1 moving forward, even if you cannot or choose not to protect from an attack entirely, you can use a shield token to affect its type of wound you receive, which is very, very important. Then we have the infliction with the icon you see here over there. If there is an infliction icon on a die you assign to the monster, you resolve the monster's infliction ability. And this could be very important because, for example, depending on the infliction, you can have a different ability which interacts and affects the behavior of the monster, and it's very, very important, and you have to pay really attention to it as well. You may always resolve this combat against the monster without a die by resolving their infliction ability. You have the burst you would see below. If there is a burst icon on a die you have put on a monster, you deal that much of damage to any one engaged monster tracking its current stamina using the stamina tokens. Okay, of course, if you dealt more than the stamina, you defeat the monster. Okay, so you can see this is the burst icon. Okay, this is the infliction icon. You can also have this icon with like a spearhead, which is the strike. Okay, if the die you assign to the monster has a strike value, you find the total strike value using also modifiers applicable, and you deal that much damage to this monster, tracking its stamina with the same way like before. If you do not defeat the monster, instead tap it. If you dealt more damage, then you take the defeat the monster course, meaning keeping it upside down next to your character board, and you can also drain it moving forward if you choose to do so. From scenario 1 moving forward, you can have also divinity bonuses. There's possible modifiers for the total strike value, and you have also weapon abilities, but these are left for you to discover. Then this is part of the beauty of the game and all the options and I would say combinations you can make by getting items, getting weapons, and upgrading also. Next we have the activate refresh a character ability. If your character card is in its ready slot aligned to the top, you choose and resolve an ability listed on your character card, and you slide the character card down to the face board, to the character board from the ready slot to its spend slot. Okay, so in order to activate an ability, let me show you. If there is one, you would be inserting it down in order to use the ability, and you need to spend one nectar, as you can see on the top, to make it still available for future. Another bonus action you can do is you can manage inventory. Okay, so you can choose one tapped weapon, pay the cost indicated on the weapon card to untap it, and you can do that in order to have it available again to use it again in the same wave for an attack. Otherwise you will not be able to attack. From scenario 2 moving forward, you place one weapon or item from your inventory into the discover market, and you place one corresponding type of loot token into the battlefield section of your zone you're in. If the weapon or item card has carry capacity, you regain that gain capacity, and you do that so essentially it's like you drop it so others can gain it. Another bonus action you can do is resource boost. If you do resource boost, you choose one of the options depending on your character position. If it's battlefield only, you spend one nectar to add the +1 strike modifier token to an engaged monster. Okay, if you use the battlefield option here. Okay, and then you spend one spark and place a card from the discover market to the bottom of your corresponding loot deck, and you draw and add the card in its place. Okay, you spend one might to immediately after rolling the fate die add +1 to the result. There are additional, from scenario 1 moving forward, there are additional bonus actions like using a companion item, okay, or pushing the limits, which is at the bottom of your player board, okay, and you can push limits with either, let's say, for the cover action. Let me show you the battlefield action. So pushing limits with on the left with the Battlefield option, or pushing limits with the cover option, okay? And you can be doing that in order to use it as a bonus action also. One last bonus action that you can do is you can, of course, utilize a landmark like the statue here, all the columns over there. Yeah. Doing it from scenario 1 moving forward, you choose and activate a landmark token in the zone your character is in, you resolve its effect, and then you remove it from the map. Okay, but this is a bonus action, so in order to utilize a landmark, you don't spend a normal action, it's a bonus action, and you can do it as long as you're there. The end of the wave. For each active character, you resolve the same steps when you have the end of a wave, whether it's wave 1 or wave 2. The active character on the battlefield, you return any defeated upside down or drained face down monsters next to your character board to the discard. You resolve the infliction effects of any untapped engaged monsters next to your character board in the order of your choice. And now all monsters still in front of you should be tapped. You move all of them except monsters in lure slots to non-alert slots on the sentinel board. From scenario 2 moving forward, if non-alert slots are full, you add remaining monsters to empty alert slots on the sentinel board, and for each monster you add, you roll the zone die. You take the zone die is this one, the black one over here, which has clear zones to use, but that's from scenario 2 moving forward. That's why you don't see any numbers like delta or theta or on the zones. You don't have to track them here, you track them from scenario 2 moving forward, because then it's when you roll the zone die. You take the alert encounter marker in the card slot you added the monster and place it in the battlefield section of the zone rolled. Of course, if all slots of the sentinel board are full and you would need to place another one, then you resolve an overrun. You return action cards and slots to your character board to your hand to use them for the next wave. If you have an active character in cover, you return face-up cards from the slots on your character board to your hand. And from scenario 1 moving forward, you move face down fit action card to the bottom of the Oblivion pile. You see the range of the Oblivion pile, and Y action cards might be face down. Okay, we've seen that. And if you're placing multiple cards into the Oblivion pile, you place them in random order, so you don't choose the order. So this is how the end of a wave works. If we've done the wave 1, you will move to wave 2, and then we'll follow the steps. We have a monster engage, we have take actions, and we have an end game, an end wave phase, respectively, as part of wave 2. For wave 2, if players with 2 players swap position cards with the other character in your team, you move the character miniature to the corresponding section of the zone they are in, and orientate your action cards to match the character new position. Okay, if it's a battlefield or cover, that's what I mean. Then resolve another wave as outlined before. Okay, so we follow the same process. If we're playing with 3 or 4 players from this side, instead we resolve another wave as outlined in the wave 1 option section, with the following exception. Only characters in the beta team are active during wave 2. And once you have resolved the wave 2, you proceed to upkeep phase that we do at the end of the third step, which is here. The upkeep phase. We change positions. If playing with 2 players, we resolve the shuffle positions effect. If we're playing 3 or 4 players, we flip the heads coin, and depending if it is heads or tail, we'll have different options. That means that if it is head, we'll have the shuffle positions. If it is tails, we'll have the swap positions, and this is clearly indicated on the card, as you can see, with the faces of the coin explained. So the shuffle positions, if playing with 2 players, you shuffle and randomly deal 1 position card to each player. Okay. For the swap position, which is only available in the 3 or 4 option player count option, you exchange your position card with the other character in your team, and you move the character miniature to the corresponding section of the zone they're in, and orient your action cards to match your character's position. Okay, that's the difference between swap and shuffle positions. Regardless of that, the next step of the upkeep phase is we untap. We untap all tapped item cards, weapon cards, action cards, and companion cards. This step is skipped for each round. The heads coin shows tails, so be careful for a 3 or 4 player. You don't want tails because you skip the untap. Then you reset pushing limits you remove any utility cubes from pushing limit spaces. So if you have cubes here on pushing limits, okay, you remove them, right? Then you trigger conditions. You trigger the effects of all conditions in player possession. And this step is skipped each round the head coin shows its tails side for 3 or 4 players. And that concludes the upkeep phase. Now we've seen the whole round structure from wave 1 to wave 2 to wave 3 to upkeep phase, and then we repeat, we start again with the next round, again going wave 1, wave 2 and upkeep. So this is a round structure and this is how the game flows. Now, there's no need to go into further detail. There are some additional concepts associated with icons, with combat. So you can have a burst, you can have defense, you can have enhanced strike, you can have promote, demote, roll a die, re-roll, set a dice to a specific phase, rank up, etc. You also have icons associated with challenge action cards. You can have a challenge action card icon. This is this one. Okay, this icon. You choose and resolve a challenge available in your zone. Scenario objective always involve resolving challenges. And once you have resolved the challenge, you place a utility cube on the corresponding space to indicate that the challenge has been completed. The new complete challenges are no longer available because they have finished. If a challenge does not have a space for a utility cube, you skip this step and you may resolve the challenge any number of times respectively. Okay. For example, you see there are different slots. You need to go and resolve a challenge action there, and when you've done it, you will place a utility cube there to indicate that you have done it. There is a pool of utility cubes for this purpose exactly. In regards to challenges, all challenges in a scenario are outlined in the challenge book. The prologue scenario does not use any challenge book, and the challenges are described on story cards. Challenges in the scenario book which are also printed on the main board are linked with specific zones. Challenges printed on the main board with the Battlefield icon are only available for characters in the Battlefield section. Respectively, for ones on the cover are only available for characters on cover section of a zone. Challenges printed on the main board with both cover and Battlefield icon are available to characters in either. And challenges often have a resource, cost or rewards. You cannot resolve a challenge if the cost or resource is not available for you to spend. Okay, so you need to be careful. From scenario 1 moving forward, there will be mandatory challenges marked with a red outline. Okay, here are the mandatory challenges that they are there. Scenario 1 moving forward, you'll have mandatory challenges that you need to complete and optional ones that you do not have to complete to successfully finish the scenario. Challenges marked with a red outline are mandatory. Mandatory challenges must be resolved in order to win the final scenario and proceed. If challenge is not outlined in the red, it is optional. Optional challenges do not need to be resolved, and it's up to the player if they choose to do so. Challenges with an X red token have preconditions. These challenges are only available if you meet their preconditions. Therefore, then you remove the X and you can proceed to follow and execute those challenges. So, of course, you can understand that this is for scenario Prison Break 1. These are the mandatory challenges, okay? On the top, 1, 2, 3, and the red. And these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 are the optional challenges. They have text, they have flair, they have rewards, they have a flavor, they have a story, they have rewards, and they have things which thematically tie to the game. And this is a very, very interesting way to make each scenario very, very unique and different. Now, the last thing I want to mention are conditions. Your character may start the scenario with a condition. For example, for this scenario, I start scenario 1 with the condition card immobilized because I'm in chains. Okay, so I have this condition card. Each card specifies its effect and how it can be removed. So you can remove the condition, which is something negative, of course. You also have companions based on the scenario. In this scenario, it dictates us that we have the Persephone servant and we can tap it to use the companion's ability, and you can have more companions, which are in common access for all characters. You have the defeated monster track. Whenever your character defeats a monster, you move the utility cube on one space down on the defeated monster track, and if cubes reaches the final space, you remove up to one encounter marker from the zone you're in, and then move the utility back the first space of the defeated monster. You can also have boss encounters from the scenario 2 moving forward. Just a word for wounds. For example, when you take a wound, okay, and you take a damage, you remove the wound token and you place it on the respective hit value below, and that you'll see it will have possibilities like affecting specific actions, making them less good or impacted, okay, reduced value. So you place an exclamation to, in this case, in the rest area, the rest action, so you will do it in reduced or even completely block you from using some specific actions. Okay, so this is a very thematic way because it shows that when you take wounds, you don't just take a stat defeat or a stat reduction. It affects your performance, and this is very, very important. Zones and adjacency. Whether or not zones are adjacent is relevant for character movement, so you should pay really good attention and careful attention on adjacency and zones and your long plans, because you need to be moving from zone to zone to get to different destinations. If two zones have a two-way connecting arrow between them, they are adjacent. For example, this zone with this one is adjacent because you see it has a two-way arrow. The same goes for this zone with that zone in the center, because as you can see, let me move the encounter marker, there is an arrow connecting, a two-way arrow connecting this zone with that zone. When two zones have a one-way connecting arrow between them, only characters in the zone from which the arrow originates consider the zone it points to the adjacent for movement purposes adjacent, and they can proceed with moving. Meaning, if it goes like that, so the arrow is only pointing from here to there, you can move only from left to right, so you can not go from right to left. But if it's a two-way arrow, you can consider both ways adjacent for purposes of movement. If between two zones there is a connecting arrow with a story token on it, and this is a fantastic mechanism of the game, I love it, the zones that are connected with such a way, like for example, this zone and that zone, it has this story token sitting between the two-way arrows. These zones are not considered adjacent until the story token has been removed. So there is something here and there is something here. So this zone with that zone also has a story token, as you can see. And this is a fantastic way to show that additional things can happen when you try to move from one specific zone to another one, which help the story move on and unfold. If the line separating two zones in general is solid and there is no connecting arrow between them, the zones are not considered to be adjacent. For example, this zone with that zone, it has a solid line. That means that these zones are not adjacent because they're solid line and no arrows connecting them. You could also see that through the course of the game you will be eliminating a zone. Eliminate the zone by placing an X marker on a zone, like this one, or you see, here has an X already. That means that for the purposes of the presence of this icon, this zone is eliminated and preventing further entry. You mark this associated as inaccessible with a utility cube, and you can remove encounter markers, and you take off all loot tokens and suffer all the matching number of cards from the rightmost spaces of the discover market linked with this location, and you remove them. So zones can be, this is a path which is not acceptable, by the way. Okay, what I mean is a whole zone can be inaccessible by having one X marker in the middle of the zone. Okay, so this is just for the path, not to confuse you. If a zone becomes inaccessible through selection of options, through course of action, from story and tactical decisions through gameplay, then you will eliminate everything linked with the zone, and this the story will guide you what to do. Last but not least, a very cool, important thing in regards to the game and how it unfolds is its difficulty. So difficulty, at the start of each scenario, players collectively agree on a difficulty to play the game, easy, medium or hard, and the difficulty you select affects the rules in different ways. Losing your last ichor, for example, the rules for what happens when you remove your last ichor from character board depends on the difficulty players agree to play. If it's an easy difficulty, you gain the unconscious condition. If it's a medium difficulty, you gain the dying condition. If it's hard difficulty, the character dies and you lose a scenario. You can be overrun. An overrun is triggered when a monster would be placed on a slot on the sentinel board and all slots are occupied already, meaning you haven't been doing a good job in fighting and eliminating monsters. You lose the scenario immediately if an overrun happens. From scenario 2 moving forward, when overrun happens, it depends upon the difficulty players agree to play with. You can have easy difficulty, medium difficulty and hard difficulty, and this dictates what happens with overrun. And this is explained and captured in the rulebook. winning and losing scenarios. You win a scenario at the end of the round when you achieve the scenario objectives as outlined in the campaign book, and you lose a scenario immediately if a character dies. From scenario 2 moving forward, when losing a scenario, there are less loss conditions in play. Loss conditions depend upon the difficulty players agreed to play with. For example, easy difficulty, medium difficulty, or hard difficulty. And everything is explained and detailed. And it's a fine way to adjust difficulty to make the game better suit your skills, your level, your experience. Okay, maybe you choose difficulty down the road. You can be repeating a scenario, you can set up and play the scenario again, or you can be proceeding to the next scenario. Okay, and everything is captured and explained, and there is no double guessing or question mark above our heads on what to do. But I really like the fact that you can fine-tune the scenario difficulty. Okay, and this helps you maybe focus more on the story and your decisions, so you don't have to play again a scenario or make it more difficult and challenging depending on your skills or how better you become through the progression of the campaign. Finally, packing the game away. You mark various information on the campaign log, and this is a great way to keep information, and it's very nice and visually appealing how you manage to quickly gather all your upgrades, your resources, your wounds, etc. Okay, and you store them on this campaign log. Your character's current icon and woods, the level of your character, and your character card type. It's B for Battlefield, core, C for cover core, and you ignore your character card if your character card is on level 1. Then the level of the upgrade next to each action of your character board. Okay, and everything is nicely captured, and you can easily log them so that you can fast resume playing once you come back to the game, and this is really, really nice. There is a 3-player variant with the Lone Wolf. There is a true solo variant for the true Lone Wolf, which uses specific cards, the Lone Wolf board also. And one last thing that I want to mention is really, really interesting, and just want to highlight, is that in the rulebook there are a very, very detailed description of all the anatomy of the cards. Every card is explained. You see the details of the companions, the monster cards, you know, the primal deity cards, the weapon cards, the oracle cards, and so on. So everything is nicely captured and everything is explained, so there is no way of having questions about what's what and how you use everything on the game material. So there you have it. This is everything you need to know about how to play Reign of Hades. What a fantastic game, very rich. Wow. I have a huge discussion among my gaming group and my friends lately about how much nowadays there is a lot of, I mean, it's offer and demand, like in every, I don't know, in every category here in gaming, also in board gaming lately. There are a lot of new games and very, very cool games and a lot of great games that play really, really nice. But even the good ones, the ones that I really enjoy and the ones that we love, you have to admit that you end up seeing a lot of things and ideas and concepts being recycled, a small room for innovation and fresh ideas, and, you know, just maybe a different setting, maybe different, a minor thing that it's okay, it's good enough, but not groundbreaking or, you know, blowing your mind in terms of something new and fresh, etc. This game really does it for me. I mean, it uses a lot of cool things, like, you know, having maps already on a grid-less approach, on sections and zones that you move by flipping a campaign book and easily setting up the game and playing. We've seen that before in other games, so I'm really happy that they went with this approach instead of having tiles and setting up and making time to really take it out and reset it, etc. Nowadays, everyone has so many things going on and so much few time spare, so you want to open the game and start playing. And I think even though the game has a ton of components, this campaign book really helps in this direction. And I engaged with some nice comments with some people in the audience from the unboxing of the prototype. By the way, I've done an unboxing video of the prototype to go into more detail about the level of the detail and the contents, even in its prototype form. And I really was of the opinion in the past that I like a lot of games where I have a lot of tiles and things and corridors and rooms and you set it up, etc. But I really go more towards nowadays into easy setup and easy putting back it together and putting it in the box so that you can focus on the campaign, focus on the story, and enjoy the gameplay more and more and progress, not just play one scenario, just go into the scenario and ride the wave. So that being said, that's a plus, but we've seen it before. What we haven't seen before, in my opinion, is a fantastic way where it blends this gridless zone movement, which is very well done, with the character progression, which we also have seen a lot of great character progression in other dungeon crawlers and other fantasy and adventure games, etc. But it does it in a very, very, I should say, fresh, clever and polished way. The upgrade tiles that you have, the upgrading with special abilities, the fantastic, amazing concept of having two heroes, one undercover and one on the battlefield, and they change positions, okay, and have a set of different options. If you're in cover, you're more focusing on supporting your character who is on the battlefield and fighting, and the other way around. When you're fighting, you have to focus on hitting monsters, attacking monsters, and getting them as much as possible out of the way, because if they overwhelm you and they overrun you, then you lose the game. A fantastic concept also on this game is that besides the different selection of options, this is dynamic. You switch positions with your characters, and then the other character comes back in and fights more, and the other one is supporting. And then you have to also move around, have to explore, have to interact, do challenges, and reveal secrets. Even crossing a path, you can have a story token, pick it up, and find out more about what's going on, what's happening. From the concept of, I don't want to make any spoilers, but even from the Scenario 0, the prologue, Scenario 1 and Scenario 2, the story looks so much promising. The overall story and the feeling. The concept, as maybe I forgot to mention already, but I was so excited to pass all my good thoughts about the game to you, is about a lot of gods like Athena, Zeus, Hephaestus, etc., Artemis, who have been, let's say, cooped, deceived from Hades, trapped underworld, and what they're trying to do is they're trying to gain their weapons and gain what is rightfully back theirs, Olympus, and punish Hades for what he has done. This is a twist on the Greek mythology. It uses the Greek mythology and the ancient gods. It uses Hades and his underworld realm, his vast access to monsters and encounters that you have. By the way, another cool thing about the game that I have to mention is the game has a lot of nice cool miniatures for the heroes, for the encounters, but it's not a game that they really focus on having a ton of plastic miniatures. So you have different types of monsters for the different types of monsters you encounter. You have different encounter monsters which are great miniatures, but then your characters are different from the cards. And don't take this as a lack of, I don't know, a conservative approach. Yes, because you have less scouts, less miniatures, etc. Enough miniatures to give you a very nice 3D presence on the table. But really, the focus of the game here is the story, the immersion, the narration, the progression, the choices, the interactions you do. The leveling up is so much good, amazing, fantastic, and I'd like to experience and try more things, etc. And all the tactical options, and moving from cover to battlefield, having different options, different actions, equipping items, getting better items, fighting monsters. The game comes with packs, with different scenario packs, and brings you different monsters, different action cards. It's an action card driven card, so you enable actions from playing action cards. You enable interactions with key points on the map by playing specific action cards, feat cards, main action cards, and challenge cards. And then you have the mandatory challenges that you need to do in order to progress on top of what's going on with your scenario, and the optionals, which is like side quests, as you would expect in a fancy video game or any other. So great. I can emphasize how much I love the game, how much potential it has, how much I'm looking forward to see what's next. So I'm very hyped to share all this enthusiasm with you. You can see for yourself what the game has to offer, what the cool ideas are coming into play, and what it brings in comparison to other games so far on the market, and why I think that you should definitely check it out. Hope you enjoyed this video. Hope I gave you a very good understanding of how the game plays, of what different it brings on the table, and let me know in the comments if you like the video, if it's for you, and if you find it interesting, and what do you think about it. So many thanks for watching.